that bind us. Sometimes we name them, even though we can't get out of them. And if there isn't anybody in this room who doesn't have them, yeah? But and if it's up to us, Peter's, I don't even know where to start. And I might look at you and say it's your responsibility to take these off. Or maybe you can take some. But there's even if I had no chains around my wrist, you can see there's stuff inside that have me locked down. Right? And so there's only really one. There's only really one who can truly set us free from things that chain us. And you know who it is? Who is it? Who is it? Jesus. Who is it? Jesus. Who the Son sets free? These folks who are in this band, they think and they pray about this whole gathering. They think and they pray about the message, and then they put these songs together, right? So we can hear God's word and God's promise in what we sing. So amen for them. Have a seat, please. Our gospel story today comes from the Gospel of St. John. Wonderful, wonderful gospel. Narratives that just, when you hear them read, you can almost see them happening. But I love this movie, which coincidentally is entitled The Gospel of St. John. And so there are no extra words in this movie. There are just the words that come right out of the gospel. And so they act the words. And so tonight, lift up your hearts and hear and see the Holy Gospel according to St. John, the 11th chapter.
Be here, Lord. My brother would not have died, but I know that even now, God will give you whatever you ask him for.
Your brother will rise to life.
I know that he will rise to life on the last day.
I am the resurrection and the life. Those who believe in me will live, even though they die. And those who live and believe in me will never die. Do you believe this?
Yes, Lord. I do believe that you are the Messiah, the Son of God, who is to come into the world.
After Martha said this, she went back and called her sister Mary privately.
The teacher is here and is asking for you.
When Mary heard this, she got up and hurried out to meet him. Jesus had not yet arrived at the village, but was still in the place where Martha had met him. Mary arrived where Jesus was, and as soon as she saw him, she fell at his feet.
If you had been here, my brother would not have died.
Jesus saw her weeping, and he saw how the people with her were weeping also. His heart was touched, and he was deeply moved.
Where have you buried him?
Come and see, Lord.
Jesus wept. See how much he loved him, the people said. Jesus looked up.
I thank you, Father, that you listen to me. I know that you always listen to me. But I say this for the sake of the people here, so that they will believe that you sent me.
After he had said this, he called out in a loud voice,
Lazarus! Come out!
he came out. His hands and feet wrapped in grave clothes, and with a cloth round his face.
Untie him and let him go.
Bring him here, Lord.
This is the gospel of the Lord. Praise to you, O Christ. If you had been here, she said, if you had been here, Jesus, my brother would not have died. But we all know, don't we? We all know deep inside of us, and we all know by our own experience, we know that this isn't actually true. It's not how it works. I sat next to my grandmother's bed and I knew Jesus was there, and still she died. I sat by my father's bed and I said goodbye to him, knowing that when I left that night, I would not see him again in the morning. But I also know that Jesus was there with him and with us the whole time. And ever since, I know that my father lives in Jesus. I know that my grandmother lives in Jesus. I know that my brother-in-law, who died at the age of 39, lives in Jesus. And so do so many others that I have had to say goodbye to. I know that they live in Jesus, even though they died. Because Jesus said, I am the resurrection and the life. He also said, even though you die, yet shall you live. Jesus is the resurrection. Thank God. There is life in him now, and there is life in him forever. One day, Jesus got off the boat and entered into the city of Capernaum, and he was met by a father whose name was Jairus. And Jairus had a daughter who was very sick, very, very sick. And he asked Jesus, please come with me. But before they got to Jairus' house, people came back and said, she's fine. She's dead. Don't bother to teach her anymore. And Jairus could have said to Jesus, if you had been here, my daughter would have lived. Brought her back to life. Lazarus died. Jesus wasn't there, but by the time he arrived, Lazarus was already in the grave 4 days, stinking dead. Stinking dead. If you had been here, said Mary. If you had been here, said Martha. But Jesus went to the tomb as we saw and heard, and he shouted out. I don't think that the movie has it right. I think Jesus said with a loud voice, "Lazarus, come out!" That would be a lot of us. He breathed life back into Lazarus. He breathed life back into the little girl. And they lived again after they died. They breathed again because Jesus is Lord over death. He is resurrection. But all people die, yes? You know that? All people die. The breath goes out of us. And eventually, even though Lazarus lived again, he died. And eventually, even though the little girl lived again, she died. It's the sad truth, even for all of us, each of us believers. People do die, and Jesus is still the resurrection. These are both true. And if it's not us who are the dying ones, then we play the part of Mary and Martha. That is to say, we grieve. And we may have regrets. Anybody ever have a regret after someone died? And we may have feelings like, I wish I had. I wish I hadn't. If only I could. People die, and that is the truth. But Jesus is still the resurrection. People die. And Jesus is still the life. Even though you die, he says, even though you die, yet shall you live. Do you believe that?
Yes.
Do you believe that?
Yes.
Do you believe it?
Yes.
I believe it. I believe that even when I'm standing in the cemetery. I believe it when I'm standing in everyday places. I believe it when I'm standing in a car dealership. Because sometimes people are dead even when they're living. Yes? You know it. And Jesus is resurrection to them too. A number of years ago now, I had brake problems with my car. Normally I have transmission problems. I think every car I've ever owned has died because of a transmission problem. But this time I had brake problems, and so I took my car to the dealership, and they said it would be a while, and so it was a Tuesday, so I went on to my Bible study, which is always at 1:30 and goes till 3. And so at 3 o'clock, I had someone give me a ride back to the car dealership, and they told me that my car wasn't done. Imagine that. So if you're in a car dealership and you've got nothing to do, and your car isn't quite ready, what do? You look at cars, right? I had no intention whatsoever of buying a car, but it's what you do when you got time to waste. So I'm looking at the cars, and I decided to look at the Ford Mustang. Ford Mustang. Very nice car, very shiny car, very powerful car, and I can imagine myself sitting in that car. I remember standing at the driver's side door, looking down inside that car, and going, I can see myself in this car. And that kind of stood up to look at the rest of the car. Over the hood, there was a woman standing there, a young woman. And she was doing the same thing, evidently, that I was doing, killing some time, looking at cars. She was wearing a leather jacket with the fringe. Right? I love those jackets. And she had a crumpled cowboy hat. And she was looking over the Mustang, and then she looked at me. She smiled, and I smiled, and I nodded at her, and she nodded back. And then I went back looking inside the car, seeing myself in a leather jacket with a hat. And then I looked at the sticker price. Ooh. And I realized I wouldn't be able to afford the leather jacket or the hat. Anyway, so I looked up from the sticker, and there she was, standing next to me. Kind of weird. And I smiled again and said hi, and she smiled at me. I was being my friendly self, and she looked me up and down, and she asked me, "Are you a pastor?" Now, you may not believe it, but that's what I looked like. Yes, my friends, that was me in another day. It was quite a number of days ago. Like the mustache? Yeah. It's like a worm crawled over the top of my mouth. So I'm wearing this collar, and she says, "Are you a pastor?" Now, at this point, I figure I might as well be honest, since, like, I have never known anybody except at costume parties who ever wore one of those things. So I said, "Yes." And she says, "What kind?" I said, "Lutheran." She just nodded her head. And then she said, "I'm a hooker." Which is not something you hear every day, particularly in the car dealership while you're looking at a Mustang, waiting for your car to be fixed. And it makes you kind of wonder what kind of tomb she was living in, doesn't it? Well, I didn't have any kind of quick reactions, so I said the first thing that came to my mind. Now, maybe because I was slow on the uptake, or maybe because I didn't seem to be judging her, or maybe because I didn't launch into some sermon about her profession, or maybe because my was just the right thing that she needed to hear. Whatever it was, she went on to tell me about her life. And how this profession wasn't really what she wanted to be doing with herself. But she had started into prostitution because she needed money to pay for the drugs that she had started to use, which was the reason why she left her parents' house. And then, of course, she had this shabby apartment that she had to pay for, plus other expenses like what? Food, clothing, and medication. Because she had a heart problem, which, by the way, wasn't being helped by the drugs or the other thing. At this point, I'm just listening and wondering to myself, what do the sales guys think about this conversation? And does any one of them want to come up and see if either of us wants to buy this stuff? She told me that she'd been picked up by the police recently, well, a while ago, and now they have her informing on her drug supplier in exchange for not going to jail. Now I'm thinking I must have stepped into some kind of cop reality show. She ended up with these words: "I'll probably be dead in 6 months." I remember saying, "Well, that's not good." My eloquence had certainly not returned. And we stood there for a second, and then I asked her, you have to say something now. I asked her, "So, like, what alternatives do you have? I mean, is there someone in your life who could help you turn around and turn away from this?" She said that her parents lived in a little town named New Melly, which, by the way, was only 5 miles from where I live. I asked her if she could go home. Could she go back there? She said, "Yeah, they'll take me in, I'm sure. You know, I grew up in a Lutheran church." To which I said, Then she said, "But I don't go now." I thought, probably not. And then I asked her, I said, what would be the worst thing? What would be the worst thing that would happen if you call up your parents and you say, "Can I come home?" And she said, "Well, my dad will probably give me a lecture, and my mom will hug me a little too long." And then I asked her, "So, what would happen if you don't call your parents?" She said, "I'll be dead." And then she said, "But I am already." And at that moment, the car pulled up outside the dealership, and she looked over at the car, she smiled at me, and she went out the door. Can you imagine the grave that she was in? Her name was Kathy. So the question I have for you tonight is, could Jesus be the resurrection and the life for Kathy? What do you think? Who do you say Jesus is?
I am the resurrection and the life. Those who believe in me will live, even though they die. And those who live and believe in me will never die.
We could be dead before we die.
Do you believe this?
We could be living in the grave before our last breath. Before we lay down and they roll the stone in front of us. It's true. Would Jesus still say today, even though you die, yet shall you live? What kind of grave are you living in? What stone has been rolled in front of you, holding you in, weighing you down? Do you think Jesus could be the resurrection for you? You want to hear the rest of Kathy's story? Okay. So our showroom encounter took place in October. A little crisp wind in the air. And a month later, this older couple came to our church. Remember how big it is? 900 square feet, just right over here. Got there early for the 10:30 service. We had just finished taking down the tables and putting them away from Sunday school so that we could have worship again. They stepped through the door, which was right back over there. There was only one door, and I noticed every time the door opened, and I noticed everybody who ever walked in, and they walked in, and they waved at me when they saw that I noticed them. They waved at me. And then the door closed, and then the door opened up again, and Kathy walked in right behind me. These two people, Lloyd and Millie, were Kathy's parents. And they came up to me, and I walked up to them, and we talked, and yes, Kathy had called them, and yes, they had said, come on home, and yes, Lloyd had given a lecture, a little shorter than she expected, and yes, Millie had hugged her a long time, which she said was just right. And Lloyd told me we could pray and pray and pray every day. Every day we've been praying that God would bring her back. And Kathy interrupted and said, Jesus did. He made me alive again. If you had been there, Jesus, my sister would still be alive. Jesus was there in that car dealership showroom. He is the resurrection. He is the life. Whether we live or whether we die, He is resurrection. Kathy struggled with her health for a number of years after that. Life wasn't easy for her. Her heart problems led to other complications. And because of how she had been living for that period of time, she never got completely and fully healthy. But she lived. And she was alive while she lived. And she told me, I don't even know why I went to that car dealership that day. It was like someone was pushing me there. And I told her, I think I know. And she said, yeah, I do too. Even though you die, yet shall you live. Lazarus, come out! Jesus called the man's name, and I love that line from the song we sang earlier. You called my name out, and I ran out of that grave. Come out of the darkness. Come out of the grave. And then Jesus said, you unbind him. You let him go. Jesus said as he breathed breath back into that little girl. And it was a whisper and a uh-huh. And Jesus said, Kathy, come out of that tomb. And she stepped out of the grave of prostitution. She stepped out of the grave of drugs. And I know that maybe it sounds easy, but it wasn't easy. We all know about chains, right? We've been wrapped inside of them so long, sometimes we think this is the way life is. And life gets stinky because we've been dead for so long. But there's always an alternative. There is always an alternative. Everybody say it. There is always an alternative. There is always an alternative. There is always somebody. There is always somebody. There's always somebody. A word that comes from God, a hug that comes from someone that tells us we are loved. And who are you going to listen to? He tells us who we are. And who the Son sets free will be free. So that we can be living while we're alive. So we can be living forgiven. So that we can be living free. So that we can be living. Who do you think Jesus was to Kathy? I'm guessing that she would say, Jesus is resurrection. Jesus is my life. Some say he was an outlaw, that he rode across the land with a band of Asturians and a few old fishermen. No one knew just where he came from or exactly what he'd done. And they said it must be something bad. They kept him on the run. Some say he was a poet, that he stand upon a hill, and his voice could calm an angry crowd, and take away standstill. That he spoke in many parables that we could understand. When the people sat for hours, some say he was a sorcerer, a man in mystery. He walked upon the waters, he made the blind man see. He wandered wide and wide, and lived rich with fish and bread. Born again, these people from the dead. Jesus is resurrection. That's what I say. And because Jesus is resurrection, he's life. Life to us while we are alive. And he is life to us when our bodies wear out. He is life to us. He is life to us when tragic accidents happen. He is life to us when cancer invades. He is life to us when we can't fight it anymore. He is life to us when we find ourselves living in a grave of our own making. He is life to us when we are so ashamed that it keeps just driving us down. He is life to us when we feel stuck. He is life to us. He speaks our name. Whispering our name. Shouting out our name. And we run out that day. Who do you say Jesus is? I say resurrection. I say life. May the peace, God, that passes all human understanding, keep your hearts and your minds in Christ Jesus our Lord. Amen. So, watch.
Who is Jesus?
He's God's son.
Jesus is my compass.
Who is Jesus?
Jesus is my teacher, and he keeps me grounded and focused on the path that is straight.
Who is Jesus?
To me, Jesus is the love and grace of God. Through him, and his sacrifice for us, through love, we get to live without sin, even though we continue to. And God's grace is given through his blood that's shed.
Jesus is the example of how I should live my life. He had power and authority and knew when and how to use those, and yet he also knew when to be gentle and when to serve others, and I want to live with that kind of humility and wisdom. So, Savior, example, Redeemer, friend, it's pretty amazing.